Has he been good to you, church?
Old things have passed away. Your love has stayed the same. Your constant grace remains the cornerstone. Things that we thought were dead are breathing in life again. You cause your sun to shine under
Yes, bless you, God. It's been a heavy week. I think sometimes as Christians, when we get into our Christian circles and our Christian family, there sometimes is a sense that we're robbed of the ability to feel, like you're not allowed to feel certain things. And that's not necessarily true. God has given us our emotions, all of them, and He gives us the grace to steward those emotions. And the Holy Spirit gives us guidance onto what we are supposed to do when we feel those emotions. And so even on the heaviest of weeks, the lyric up there said, you make your sun, S-O-N, your sun shine on darkest nights. God is faithful. He is true. He is consistent. He is faithful. And we don't put our hope in anything less or more than Christ Jesus. That's where our hope belongs. And so, Father, we thank you that our hope is firm and secure, that we can stand on you, and we can look to you for guidance, that your Holy Spirit is alive, active in our lives, will speak to us and give us direction and clarity in all things, God. And I ask, Lord, that you would cover the school in Nashville. I pray, Lord, that you would be with all of the families and the leadership there, God, that you would give them guidance and a peace that only you can give. And Lord, for anybody who is confused, struggling, Lord, I thank you that your special grace will meet them there too. We love you and we honor you tonight, God. We believe that you are who you say you are. And we thank you that your presence was here even before we got here. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. You may be seated. Well, thanks for being here this evening, everybody. We're going to be just a moment closing out our series on Family Raw and Beautiful. And it's been a good one, hasn't it? We're just so blessed to have you all share. And for those of you who participated in sharing, thank you. Thank you for being vulnerable and being real with us. Before I bring Justin and Jessica up, tonight will be our final midweek gathering. We will not have one in April. Okay, so all of April, at the end of April, we're going to have a church-wide skate night. And then in May, we will pick up with midweek gathering again. We're going to be going through the book of Psalm chapter 23. That's what we're going to be doing in May. And so we're going to go through a 5-week series over Psalm 23. So I invite you to be a part of that. And of course, this weekend, we have our conference that we've been talking about. And that begins on Saturday night at 6:30. So I hope that you've made plans to be a part of that. Well, we've heard a lot of raw. We've heard a lot of beautiful. I'm sure we're going to hear a bit more tonight. Would you guys welcome Justin and Jessica Beshearse?
I started to come up here and introduce myself, then go sit back down, and then get back up with my wife. You'd have loved that, wouldn't you?
That's what
Wouldn't that have been great?
To do.
That's what I wanted to do.
Yeah, that's what he wanted.
All right. Good evening, everybody. I know this is the moment you've all been waiting for, since I have prepared you for the police chase and the Breaking Bad, but you are not going to.
This is not a rebuttal.
This is not any of that tonight. Mom did a great job of giving you guys the A side and the B side and all of the other gritty details in between. And if there's anything else you want to know, we will host a Zoom dinner soon.
No, we will not. Okay. So our story, our family. We have a very blended mix. Very, very blended family. Our current family dynamic, for me, I have 3 bonus kids.
I have one biological son and I have 4 foster kids. So I have 8 children total, but they're all mine. And Jess just has a lot of kids.
Just have all these kids.
You just have all the kids. So, but it's a crazy dynamic we have. Our family is me and Jess. Our oldest daughter, Haley, she's 21. Our oldest son, Griffin, is just turned 20 this month. Then Lily is the next. She's 12. Then Catalina is 10. And then Noah is 9. And then DJ is 8, but DJ will be 9 in April. And then Allie is 7. She just turned 7 in November. And Jesslyn is...
She's 5.
She's 5.
About to be 6.
And she will be 6. Did you catch all that? Are you tracking? You know where we're at? 21, 20, 12, 10, 9, 8, 7, 5.
It's a lot of kids.
It's a lot of kids. But just looking back, we can see all the ways that God has prepared us over the years. And I guess that's kind of what our story is. Like if there's an encouragement to you, because the details are obviously different, but it's, when you look back at your life, I hope that you can see God's hand in different seasons and in times that were hard and times that were difficult. We see how he was preparing us for things we didn't even know were to come. And just walking through some of the fires and walking through some of the process, we're able to be in a position now to walk out a different level in our calling. When we first got together, no, you were kind of a hot mess.
It's a hot mess, yeah.
I wanted to be careful how I said that. I want to be like, well, I was a disaster, but you were kind of a little bit of a disaster.
I was a pretty baby Christian.
Yes, she had been saved like 30 minutes, and I met God at the dumpster when I was like 21. I grew up in church, right? I've told you guys several times, I was baptized probably 14 times in every boat dock and boat
I just
ramp.
did the one time right there.
Just did the one time. But when we met, we were both pretty much a disaster. She had been going through some things. I was definitely in the middle of some things. And we actually met at karate class. Some of you guys know that. We met at...
Tell the Noah version first.
Oh, well, Noah says this, and I tell my son all the time, son, there are things that you can't say in public without any kind of... You just can't just spit out and say anything. So Noah will often say, when my mom and dad met, my dad punched her in the face and she kicked him in the head.
And
I'm
that's
like,
accurate.
Son, you can't say things like that. And there's worse things. Look for that Zoom dinner link. But I'll tell him, you can't say that outside these walls because I will get arrested if you do that, right? Just because of the way that it sounds. But we met at karate class. I remember I called my mom one Friday. I was single, and I'd called my mom to see what her and dad were doing. That's how you know you're single, when you're calling your parents to see what the heck they're doing on a Friday, And so I was like, what are you guys doing? She was like, oh, your dad's got a test. I was like, what kind of, was it like a CDL? Like, was he getting like CPR? She's like, oh, no, he's got a karate test. I was like, oh, heck no. No, he's not fixing to be able to Chuck Norris me at Thanksgiving dinner. It's just not going down. So I started going and taking martial arts with my dad, and that became our thing. You know what I mean? That was something that me and my dad had. And I look back now, and I'm so grateful for that bonding time, because I see, if you remember my parents' testimony about my high school years and those years of being in rebellion, my dad was searching for ways to connect with me, and I didn't realize it until later on. But, their generation would be like, here, come help me change an oil filter. And you're like, I don't want to change a daggum oil filter, right? But that was their way of saying, I want to spend time with you. And I was more interested in doing other things. So when I had the opportunity for this to come back around and spend that time bonding with my dad, I was grateful that I got it. Plus, that's where I met my wife.
And I was at karate because I had the 2 older kiddos who I took to see the newer version of the Karate Kid, right, in the theater. And they were like, oh my gosh, we got to do that. And so I looked for a place for them to go, and Town Center had a reasonable rate in comparison, and then they suckered me into doing it with them because my daughter is very good at the manipulation of, well, I just am so afraid and I can't do it without you. And so because I am a sucker for it, I went ahead and did it. And then it just kind of became our thing, and it was actually became more of my thing than their thing because they didn't really care as much as I did.
So why don't you tell them but this time when you signed up for karate, you had already been divorced.
Twice.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So went through my second divorce and was there at karate. My mom lived with me and took care of my infant at the time. She was 1 by the time we met. But it was just one of those things where I was, trying to figure life out and trying to do the best that I could and do what I thought I should be doing at that time, which was like really getting in the Word and learning more about the Lord and then also learning how to protect myself because I was a single mom and didn't know how to do that either. So I was protecting my kids from all things and especially potential ask outs.
Right, yeah, because she had already been divorced.
Yep.
She'd been divorced twice. She had just gotten newly saved. She was attending World Outreach so because it was so big that she could slide in and get out without anybody noticing her or asking her questions or trying to. I'm speaking for you.
You are, yes, and that's true. That at that point in my life, I was in a place where I needed community, but I didn't know how to get that. Anytime I went somewhere there, it was there were just so many people, and it was just like could never see the same people twice. And so I was like, I don't know how to do this, Lord. You're going to have, but I definitely didn't want to have to like church shop. I didn't know what that looked like either. So I was like, Lord, you're just going to have to help me out here and tell me where to go. And so she's at World Outreach, and she also was protecting her kids from any potential suitor, right? I.e. me. She didn't know she was protecting them from me. And so she was very protective of like Nobody came around my kids.
Right.
People tried.
What do you mean nobody? Well, how many bodies were coming around?
People tried to ask me out. I would say no, but that was just one of those things.
Okay.
I'm sorry, you weren't the only one that thought it was cute.
I was young. Okay, all right, let's go. All right. And her last name was Fox, too. I was like, man, have you seen Miss Fox? Let's go, right? So she had brought Haley and Griffin, who were 10 and 8 at the time. Haley was 10, Griffin was 8. And they were in karate class, too. And so we would make eye contact every now and then after class, she would scurry off.
No, you were not there.
I was not there. Yes, I was there at first.
Okay, no.
Because I was there. Listen, this was also the time that I was in a 1-year discipleship program for men with life-controlling problems.
So he was not there. These people became my people, and I would hang out with them. We would do family dinners and different cookouts and different things. He was not there because he was away, and so I saw him one time, maybe when we first started going.
It's not true.
Yes, and then we had been there for months before you came back, and then it was the one awkward time that started it all.
One time, that's all it took, one ask out. It was a failed ask out. I had this plan in my head that I was going to invite her to church. And she was going to say, I don't go to church. And then I was going to invite her to Springhouse. And it did not go that way. So she runs out after the class, and I go chase her down in my karate outfit, right? I was like, ma'am.
Hang on. Because first of all, no. Okay.
This is exactly how it happens in my mind.
So we get there. There's so much more to the story. That's how it went in his mind. It was so awkward. So we get there, and we get in there, and he comes beelining for us.
Oh, I forgot I was fishing.
I'm sorry. Fishing. Right. Yeah, big time fishing, right? And I'm standing there with my 2 kiddos, and he's like, well, hello, hi, how are you guys? Have you been here long?
I was not that pompous.
Yes.
Y'all don't know y'all hear how I talk. This is exactly how it sounds.
How about Dad? Does Dad come? Does Dad come? Is Dad involved? I was like, no.
I was asking about Dad. I was doing recon. I wanted to know where Dad was at.
All the recon.
And she was like, no, Dad, no.
Yeah,
no.
And then so class is getting ready to start. Haley being the very very intuitive child that she is, she was like, what was that about? Why is your face red? Why is he talking to you like that? And I'm like, you be quiet and go start stretching. And so already super awkward. Haley notices, oh my word, right? I'm losing my mind.
So we're going to wrap this part up, okay?
Yes, got to go.
So I go chase her down. Yeah. I say, hey, do you take the kids to church anywhere? And she says yes. And my mind went completely blank. And I start saying, well, that's great and cool because, yeah, church is good. I'm glad you're in church. But if you did not have a church, I would invite you to my church because we have plays. We're doing Annie right now. And I was so bragging on the theater. It's all I had was like, we're doing Annie. And she was like, cool. And the kids are just so confused. And I'm like, I'm glad you have a church. That's great. And then I walk off and what the heck was that?
That's what the kids said.
And
what the heck was that?
What the heck was that? Are we going to church or are we not going to church?
Said, no, he just wanted to make sure that we went to church and we do, so let's go.
Yeah. So it was so bad, but then she sends me a friend request that I don't accept for a month because I'm in a 1-year discipleship program for men with life-controlling problems, and there is no phone access. So she sends me a Facebook request that lies dormant for a month.
Yes.
And I can only imagine how many times she was checking to see if I was posting.
Not as many as he thinks.
I like to think she came home from work, opened up her Facebook, and still saw it pending and went on about her life, right? But it was a weird spot because she had told God, I'm done. She's already walked through 2 divorces and the hurt of that, and has 3 kids with two different marriages. And so she was like, God, if I'm going to do this again, you're going to have to scream it out to me. And me, being the idiot that I am, ask a girl out while I'm in rehab. Right?
But he asked me to church.
Who has 2 kids, but I asked her to church. So I immediately realized this is not going to go anywhere. So I said, I'm going to have to tell her what's going on in my life. And so I said, hey, this is going to sound crazy, but a month later goes by. I accept the friend request. We see each other at class, and I say, hey, it's going to sound weird, but would you write me a letter, like on paper with a pen, and mail it to me? Because I'm kind of in a program. And she was like, sure. And I was like, oh, wow. She said, and by the way, I have a 3rd child. And I was like, oh, okay. So we're both a hot mess. Maybe this can work. And so it did. I graduated the program in January of 2012. We got engaged in September of 2012, married in December, and we had Noah the following December. Can you put
September.
First September? His birthday is September. Okay. This was our first picture as a family. Those were our engagement photos from Ken and Lori Stilger. Some of you OGs might know Ken and Lori. This was a difficult season in our life because for me, I was having to build multiple relationships at the same time. I had prayed for a family for so many years, and God, in His grace, said no because I would have screwed it up. And in His grace, and admittedly, I tried to ruin it. I tried to ruin it over the years. Not intentionally, but just not appreciating the gift of family that God had given me and the things that I'd prayed for. And it was also a tricky season for Jess because she had to become immediately immersed into my family culture. It was a weird season. I'm trying to build, all of these relationships at the same time.
Yeah, and when you look at a broken family, right? You're already out of what God had set out for what family's supposed to look like. And so with that, it brings you into, it's a challenging time because you have to establish the man and wife, right? And they're supposed to become one and cleave to one another and leave their mother and father and do all of those things. But when you have kids and you have kids that are not necessarily his kids, even though they become his kids, you can't just all of a sudden say, okay, now he's in charge, he's going to do the disciplining and all of the things that God had already kind of laid out when you start the right way and you do the things the right way. So in having to do that, it was super awkward anyway because we never really established ourselves as a unit to start with too, and by us just jumping into his family, it kind of just put everything out of whack anyway.
Yeah, it was kind of super disjointed. And I realized very early on, I'm the only morning person at the house. So when we got married, I leveled up instantly. So it was instant family. I got a wife, 3 children, a dog, a house, and a pickup truck. And she just got me. It's all that happened. She knew what she was doing. She knew the investment. She was like, look, it's going to pay dividends later. Okay, I'll take what I got now, and then I'll just hope for a good return later. You know what I mean? I got all my money up front, and then it just bloomed into even more.
Well, I was this like Lifeway-aholic, right? I was like, I got to get a book for that. I got to like figure all the things out.
So she got me a book called The Smart Stepdad. And it gave me so much insight because there were in the chapter that really ministered to me the most was titled "The Marines Have Landed," and it talked about the tendency of to take over, to jump in and be like, okay, we're married now. Now I'm your dad, and now I'm in charge, and now these are the rules, and now this is how it's going to go. And while there is some truth to that, you're gonna do a lot more damage to a new relationship with a son and a daughter that are not yours biologically than you are going to trying to get your wife on board with that. And so in that, I was able to, and in a way, defer some things, not abdicate my responsibility. I'm not place a mantle on Jess that she's not meant to carry. That's not what I'm saying. But it was more of learning how to make the swap a lot gentler to the headship in the home, as opposed to just storming the beaches of Normandy and now I'm in charge, you know? The other insight that I received from that book was Stepdad Mountain is something you're always climbing. Even to this day, I thought I saw the top, but you realize when you get up there, that's a cloud and you're just at base camp. Like there's so much to it. But that book kind of allowed me to have some insight, but we really didn't start walking this out until our second marriage. A lot of you guys may or may not know, me and Jess have never been divorced, but we've been married twice. Pretty miraculous, right?
Yeah, we talk about our first and
We talk about our first marriage and our second marriage all the time. Our
first marriage is always in the negative. We're like, oh, that was when we were in our first marriage. Mm-hmm. No, that's not how it is anymore.
Yeah, we you guys that have been here for any length of time have heard me speak candidly about my relapse in 2015. I relapsed on prescription pills. It was a long, hard year. There were some challenges involved. There was a lot of God moments and a lot of God stuff in there. But what God did while I was away, in me and in her, allowed us to see that everything from that first marriage that was not of God was literally burnt up. I can't explain to you how literally it is night and day difference between that time period and the time now. Everything in our former life, in our former marriage, has been burnt up, almost like purified. When the word talks about the refiner's fire and taking all of the impurities out, that's what that season was for us. But coming on the other side of that, that's when we began to really start walking a lot of the stuff that we knew or had picked up along the way. We started walking that out, and that was post Bethel. When we really started working through that.
Bethel was where you had gone.
Bethel is where I had gone. Bethel Colony of Mercy is a 65-day program in Lenoir, North Carolina. And they pack more in 65 days than most programs do in 6 months. I have sent several men there over the years, not because what they do is miraculous, but sometimes you just got to get quiet enough to hear God. Sometimes you just got to get in a place where people don't need you, or the worries that you have about everyday life can fall away, and you can really just get in a space where God can speak to your spirit and speak to your heart. And for me, that place was at Bethel. I got quiet enough to hear what God had been saying. I've shared the story about be still and know that I'm God. And God's like, if you keep running, I can't heal broken legs because you keep running on them, dummy. So sit down, close your mouth, and let me do some work in your heart. And when he did, it was funny because up until 2 weeks before I came home, me and Jess were at an impasse, and I didn't know if we were ever going to make it through. And something happened. There was a miraculous moment. There was some spiritual stuff attached to it. There was some demonic things that had been oppressing me for many, many years that were attached to my addiction and bondage and things like that. And there was actual freedom that had come behind that. And when those final 2 weeks, we really started talking and working through some things and working on our marriage. And God was really kind of mending things. And one of the most beautiful things is, to this day, the kids don't have any recollection of me being gone. Like, I can't explain to you. It's like God literally covered their minds in that period. They knew something wasn't right then, but now as adults, they don't remember that time.
Yeah, I sent our testimony when we shared here. I sent it to my oldest because she was at that age where she was aware of what had happened, because she's older. Like we said, she's 21, almost 22. And I'd sent it to her, and she watched it, and she said, I had no idea. She said, God completely covered us, Mom.
That's grace.
None of us knew what was happening.
Yeah, it's such grace. But so we worked through some stuff, and then when I came home, Jess was showing me all of the fun things that she had done around the house, and she took me upstairs, and we go to the bonus room, and there is a bed in the bonus room with a little nightstand and a lamp and a painting that says, "Be still and know that I'm God" over it. And I was like, was this my bedroom that I was going to? She was like, well, I'm just saying, I didn't know what kind of version of you was going to come home. So just in case, I had a place for you to stay up there, even if it wasn't going to be down here, you know? And so I was like,
but God told me we were good. We were going to be okay.
But we had to work through that. But since then, over the years, even pre-Bethel, over the years, we have always kind of opened our home as a refuge for people. We've had Bible studies where there's more people than we can handle. Literally, 17, 18 kids. And 12, 15 adults, people that have
hospitality is just kind of one of those things that we've both kind of just share that.
Try to model to our kids too. Like,
open our homes for multitudes of reasons, different.
Yeah, people displaced or in between things. Hard time, full-on families. We've had full families come and live with us. It'd be like right now, all three of y'all just come and live with us. Like, there's not room for that. But sometimes, like I shared last Sunday, I believe, or 2 Sundays ago, sometimes help is not just convenient, We recently fostered a full family for 8 months, and this is pre-renovations at the house. We had our 4 and their 5. So we had 9 people, 4 adults, 1 bath, 1 shower, and 1 50-gallon hot water tank. And God just like loaves and fishes. It just...
Yeah, when you
just kept flowing. It wasn't a tankless, and it just kept flowing. Man.
It never felt claustrophobic. Like, you never felt when you're doing what God asks you to do, He just covers the situation. Like, you don't have to worry about if this is going to be awkward. There was nothing awkward. Everything always flowed well. Multiple times when we had multiple families living with us, they're like, "Oh my gosh, it's so many people," and I'm like, God covered the whole thing. Like, there was never any of those times.
Because that's kind of what like family is to us, Like. I don't know if I'd let my mom and dad come stay for 8 months, but
not true. Yes, we would.
We would. My mom let me stay on her couch for 8 months, so I'd let Mom stay on my couch for 8 months if she got hard up. But no, I mean, that's kind of like as family, we want to show our kids like sometimes you just like sometimes some things are no brainers, right? Like. The family that I mentioned had to stay with us. They were having a situation with their apartment, and it was like I'm probably going to get the details wrong, but their lease was ending and they didn't.
So they were pregnant and they knew that they needed a bigger place. And so at that point, they found a house. They'd put down payment down, or deposit. It was a rental, right? So they'd put everything in line to do that. They gave their notice at the apartment. Great, right? So they're doing all of the things you're supposed to do. Yeah. Well, then they had already given their notice to the apartment, and the house fell through.
And so they were just distraught. And I told Jess, tell
leave.
her to calm down. Worst case scenario, they're not going to be out on the street. And so Jess verbatim says, hey, calm down. Worst case scenario, you're not going to be out on the street. So then 3 days later, the wife calls and says, hey, have you finished praying about us coming?
Since you've been praying
and was like, yeah.
You guys are good with that, right?
Come on. It was a no-brainer. Like for me, and we moved things around and made it work. And it was probably, man, one of the most, like as many people as in the house, it was a beautiful season for everybody. There was some reconciliation things that went on. But sometimes you just do the work that you know. And we want to model that to our kids. But God has He's used that over the years to prepare our hearts for the journey we're on now.
So we actually had a foster child.
Well, we started our foster care journey with you laying in the bed at night with those Arms of an Angel commercials. You know what I'm talking about? Like they set you up. It's so bad. I mean, it'll be like
all those websites,
all these orphan kids.
They are really hard.
And so I would wake up in the middle of the night, and it'd be pitch black in my room except for the blue light from her phone, and she is just. And I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, there's so many kids that don't have anywhere to go. And I'm like, I cannot with you right now.
Literally what he would say, I
cannot with you. And so she had been praying about the foster care journey, and she knew that I was going to say no.
Yeah, so God had been nudging me for several months, and I was like, at first, and I initially was like, absolutely not. This is not something that's ever been a desire of mine. Like, it never even like come up to me. I'm like, nope. And so it was literally several months, and then it just wouldn't go away. So I'm like, well, let me just look at these websites. And that's when he would find me on my phone, just weeping my eyes out, just, oh my word, these poor babies. Dude. But I said, okay, God, well, here's the funny thing. He's going to shut this down the second I tell him that this is what we're supposed to do. Like, this is totally not going to happen anyway. So I said, hey, honey, oh, no, that wasn't even the first one. The first one was, my husband has a felony on his record.
Yeah.
So this is totally not going to happen anyway. That was actually the first.
Because you heard my parents' testimony, right?
So I reached out to an agency and I said, hey, this isn't even a possibility, right? And my husband has a felony. And they respond back, oh, no, it's totally fine as long as there's nothing on his record in the last,
as long as he's not a violent criminal.
In the last 5 years, and it doesn't have anything to do with kids. And I was like, oh, gosh. And so that's when I was like, well, that's...
Now it's getting real when God starts opening doors for you, and you're like, I'm not getting up. I'm not walking through this.
I'm like, so that's fine, God. Justin's going to shut this down. It's no problem. So I go to him. I said, honey, God is really, I don't know what's happening, but like God's really put foster care on my heart, and I just don't know how I feel about it. And he's like, yeah, that totally makes sense.
Sure.
Yeah. Of course. Of course.
Y'all know me. I don't have a lot going on, man. I need extra stuff to do.
Yeah, sure. Right. So I'm a disaster. I'm a hot mess. I'm like, no, I can't do this. Why would we do this? But his explanation just put me at ease. And he said, do you recall what you even said?
I recall nothing. Tell me what I said.
That's fantastic. He said, honey, over the years, how many times have we opened our home? And I'm like, like a lot. He's like, okay. So if you think about foster care, it's about parents having a second chance at getting their kids, right? And so in that, couldn't you see us ministering to a parent who's trying to get their kids back? Well, yeah. He's like, okay, well, what about those kids? Those parents deserve a second chance, but so do those kids, right? So don't you see us trying to minister to those kids and giving them a second chance at a family if, for whatever reason, those parents are not going to do what they're supposed to do to get them back? Don't you see us doing that? And I was like, yeah. So
every now and then, man, I come up with some real
every
sage
now and then. Every
wisdom.
now and then.
I don't know where I know where it
ministers.
comes from. I know it ain't from me. It's from the Spirit of the Lord, because those answers do not come out of me. But that's how I think that's how marriage is sometimes, man. God will give you the words to say to bring comfort, because in that moment she didn't need me to. She wanted me to shut it down, but what she needed was for me to hear from the Lord and give the right answer, because that type of answer changes the trajectory in the direction of your life. And if I just spit off any old thing, then I'm not doing my due diligence as the head of the household to lead our family in the right direction. So I'm grateful that the Lord is able to use me to put her at ease instead of just telling her what she wants to hear to put her at ease. There's a big difference there. In marriage. So also it was 2020, so we were doing nothing outside of our home. So all of our certification was done via Zoom. And let me tell you, right, a lot of this DCS training is not just like exciting stuff. Now put it on Zoom that they want the camera on for 3.5 hours, and you are just training. So we did all of our training, we did all of the certification, and we knew in our heart that we needed kids around our kids' age. But all we kept getting were calls for teenagers. And so Jess reluctantly said yes to a teenager that we knew we were not supposed to take. And it went the way that we knew it was going to go, and it almost broke us. I mean, it was a disaster. We had to have the kid come and be taken back out of our home.
But even when you step outside and you do something that you know you're not supposed to do, God can still do something in that, right? And so within that, regardless of the hot mess that it was, the one and only thing that kid wanted to take with him when he left our home was the Bible that I bought him. He didn't want any of the other things that we had gotten for him. He refused them. He didn't want them, but he took that Bible. And so...
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the seeds that we planted, but it was tough on us because we felt like, man, we missed God on this one. But then there's all those questions because, man, you feel bad about the whole situation. And then immediately following was when we started fostering and helping the family that stayed with us for 8 months. We didn't know it was going to be 8 months, but it turned into 8 months. So our home was closed anyway. We had no more room for anyone. But then after they left, we were kind of in this weird place. We were like, do we?
As they were getting ready to
as they were getting ready to leave, we were like, are we supposed to foster again? And dadgummit, if Kevin didn't bring Isaiah 117 house and Rhonda Paulson up in here, and she starts sharing about foster care and the journey, and I'm back there right where my mom and dad are sitting, and I am.
We weren't that far back, but still, listen. Okay. He is what's so fun. No, because our seat was like right there. That's where we were.
I know, but we were displaced. We were somewhere else. I sat right where they're at.
He has been admitted. He's an admitted crier. Okay, but when
not as bad as
it's
Alan.
Not Alan. He's not an Alan.
Not
crier.
quite there, but because he's had a lot more seasons of crying than I have. Right? I love you, Alan.
He'll get to Alan level eventually.
Eventually.
But so we're both crying, but I'm crying and I look over at him and he's, like ugly crying.
None of y'all remember that. That did not happen.
Listen,
like that.
I know a lot of the people in the room that were looking at us, so you can probably back me up here. But we both felt so heavy with that message from her, and she was here for 2 services, and we were a disaster for both of them.
Garbage, man.
It was so bad. You know, he was like, I'm going to go meet her at the table. He took off running before she even finished up what she was doing. I had to go to the bathroom because I was a disaster. I had to get myself together. And what's funny is I got to meet her first in the bathroom.
Yeah, she goes to the bathroom, and I'm over there waiting at the table. Anyway, it sparked that back in us. I knew, wait a minute, we're supposed to foster again. And the first foster was kind of tough on our biological kids because when the other family came to stay with us, it was right after our oldest son had graduated high school and he moved out. And so now we've got a family staying with us. We've got 2 grown kids, and grown kid dynamic and young kid dynamic is a completely different animal when you're trying to forge those relationships with your grown kids, because now you don't get to just tell them what to do. You got to hope that you can influence their decisions. And so it's a weird situation, and we're worried about our kids, our kids that are in the home, their protection too. But then Rhonda comes and blows the lid off that, and we're like, okay, God, this is what we're supposed to do. So we start going back through our certification process again. You have to do half the training again. And as we're going through that, we started getting a call from somebody for respite care. And respite care is if another foster family needs a break or they're going out of town or something. And so this lady, and if you're a foster parent, sometimes you need a break. If you're a parent, you need a break, right?
Yeah, just regular.
So regular parent, right? Not parenting plus, right? So we respite cared for these three kids right after.
So we knew we were supposed to help with younger kids, but we also knew very much that it was supposed to be siblings. Siblings was really one of those things on our heart that, like, you hear about those kids that get split up from their siblings because, there's a big group and somebody only wants, somebody under 4 or whatever it is. And so that was the hardest thing. And so this respite was for a sibling group of 3.
Yeah. So we picked them up, and I felt like I had never parented before in my life. I'm serious. I felt so inept as a dad. I didn't know what to do. I was like, I don't know. I felt like I did not know what to do. And it's almost like, when I was taking martial arts with my dad, part of the reason why you train and part of the reason why you do the repetitions over and over and over and over is for muscle memory, so that when something happens, you kick into gear because of your training. And I feel like now that God said, I have been training you for this moment for many, many years. And I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I just froze up in the battle,
He panicked.
And so it was a horrible weekend for me.
And I'm like, yes, this is it. This is what we're supposed to be doing.
That night.
These are the kids.
I told Jess, I was like, babe, look, I don't think I can do this. I really don't think I could do this. So I come in the next morning, and God places this song in my heart. It was from Need to Breathe. It was called Into the Mystery. And I went and I sat in my office in here, and I listened to this song on repeat for probably 20 minutes, right? And he's talking about following. He said, I'll follow you into the mystery. I'll follow you. And he's talking about, it gets to the bridge, and he says, we're our sons and daughters. We are not alone. And then I come in here for prayer. We have a staff prayer. And the first thing out of Pastor Kevin's mouth is, we are sons and daughters and we're not alone. And I was like, who told you, right? And so I just dropped to my knees, and I felt like in that moment, God was saying, look, you don't know what this is going to look like. Don't try to figure it out. Will you step out in faith? Will you follow me into the mystery? And that has become my foster care song, because there have been many moments where I've been crying my eyes out in the Home Depot parking lot, talking about, I don't know what I'm doing here. And then every time it gets hard in our foster care journey, that song will just pop up just out of nowhere on a random playlist. And I know it's God saying, hey, I know you don't know what it looks like. I know I've been preparing you for years. Just keep walking, keep trusting, keep loving, keep doing the things that you know to do. And it brings me great encouragement, because now we have 4, I told you guys, we have 4 foster kids at the house. When they came to our house last July, Jess called me while I was at work, and she said, hey.
So in that process of the hot mess weekend with the respite sweeties, right? It was hard. It was a lot. It was chaotic. It was crazy. I had asked him, "Are what are you called to?" When he was questioning, I can't do this, and he's doing. I said, "Well, what are we called to? Like, what are we doing?" And so then that next day, so that night, I said, "Are we supposed to do this? Would you say yes to this particular sibling group?" Because there was this question as to whether or not
I forgot about that.
The foster mom could keep them. And so I said, would you say yes to them? And he said, no.
Oh, that's important.
It's very important because the next day, after the Lord ministered to his heart through all of those things, the things that with the song, what Pastor Kevin said, there was an encounter with this woman that we had never seen and have never seen since.
Oh, yeah, she was an angel. This lady came in Springhouse doors, never seen the lady. She'd never even been here. And what did she say?
I don't remember.
It
was so crazy. Like
she said something. She said something.
She said to me, she said, God is getting ready to expand your territory. She just wanted to meet me and hug me and tell me that. And I was like, okay. Because I'm like, my husband said no.
And then she leaves. Look, and then the lady leaves. She didn't even stay for service. She came in, found her, said that, walked out.
No, she said something to you.
I know, but I don't remember what it was. I have blocked it out. La, 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 la.
It was the scripture about the orphans and the widows.
Oh, it was that. My God, I love you so much.
I know.
Look, it was the same passage about a fatherless to the father to the fatherless and like taking care of, like it was the same passage that Kevin had started saying that morning, right?
And the woman said
and
it.
she says it, then leaves. And so then we go home with the kids from the respite care, and when the foster mom comes to pick them up, she didn't know if she could keep them. And I told her, I said, I'll tell you what, if you decide that you can't keep those kids, I'll take them. And God had no intention of those 3 kids coming to me. What God wanted was for our yes to be on the table. He had to get our hearts to the yes for the kids he wanted to bring us. And we had to walk through all of that stuff. And so it's one of those moments where you can like open a book and you see you see the movie and all the pages go, and you can start seeing all the things that God has been doing along the way. Stepdad Mountain, learning to love kids that are not yours, and then you have a biological kid and learning how to balance that where you don't show favoritism, and then she's just a mom to all of them, right? She's been a mom her whole life.
My whole life.
And that's part of her upbringing, learning to parent her siblings because of the things that her parents have walked through. And God, for some reason, in his grace, deciding that I needed a lot of kids. I was joking with my mom the other day because she used to say growing up, I hope you have 5 boys just like you. And I was like, I started reflecting on my life and looking at my kids, and I was like, man, my kids are great. I got out, right? Noah's phenomenal. Griffin and Haley, I would be stern with them, and they would have meltdowns. Lily, she's sweet. She doesn't get whoopings or spankings or anything like that. And God was like, you ain't getting out this easy. Watch this. I'm going to give you 4 kids that need whippings that you can't whip. Because you can't whip kids in foster care.
Sure can't.
It's like, I'm going to give you 4 kids that need a whooping. You can't touch them. Don't think you got over on me. But yeah, that our yes was on the table, and God God expanded our family that day. So now we have 8 kids. This is our current family minus the Fosters. That first photo was our first photo. Then we recreated that photo several years later because we decided we needed one with Noah. And based on where our life is headed and what God has done with us and family and parenting and how we know we're a blended family, we can't wait to do another photo that's about 50 yards.
You need a panoramic shot.
We're going to have a panoramic shot to get all 10 of us in the photo. But yeah, God has prepared us our whole life. We have a verse we want to share with you, John 13:34. This is our, is it 13:34? Yeah, this is it. Read that, honey.
Hope so.
That's it.
A new command I give to you, that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you also are to love one another. And that's just really the verse that we try to flow from, that we function in as a family.
Yeah, that's us. We just love. And it's tough. Like, I know we make it sound fun sometimes, but it's full time. When you got that many kids and that many personalities, it is full-time parenting. When people ask how we're doing, I say, well, it feels like we started the game down 15 and we're just trying to cut it to 10 by halftime. And you can't take any plays off. If you take one play off, the ball is sailing way over your head. And it's exhausting sometimes because it is full-time parenting. But when you realize what you're doing is you're giving love to people that have not known what love is. And I can see the way God has done the same thing for me in my hot mess over the years. God's like, you don't know what this is doing for you. You don't know what this structure is doing for you. You don't know what this discipline is doing for you. You don't know what actual love is. And so because God has modeled that to us, me and Jess try to model that now in our second marriage. We try to model that to our kids and not just talk about it. Sometimes the scriptures can become abstract when we're sharing with people. And so this is a way for us to show our kids and our family that this really is Christian living. This is
the scripture that talks about not being weary of doing good.
Yeah, don't be weary in doing good, because if you stay the course, and in due season, you will receive your reward. And whether that's on this side of the Jordan or the next is not up to us. We just know that we've been called as a family to love. And so that's what we try to walk out. So we hope our story kind of encourages you guys to continue to walk out love. Just, that's us.
Thank you.
You guys walk out love very well, and you're a major, major blessing to those kids and to this body. Let's pray. Father, thank you so much for Justin and Jessica and their lives and their kids, God. Pray that you would continue to encourage them and use them, Lord, in a mighty way. And Lord, would you just put your hand